We're going to take a look at lesson number 6. This is going to be a walkthrough for all of lesson 6 that we can do. Now when we're looking at lesson number 6, you'll see that just like the other lessons, we have exploration, we got a skill building, we got a little practice, and then we have an assessment for lesson 6 part 6. And this assessment is going to be graded. I will walk you through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to let you do 6 on your own, and then I'll talk a little bit about part 7. Okay? So random numbers. You have a new block in the math drawer. This is a new for us. Okay, we got drawing and math, called random number. If you make your drawings with random numbers, it will look a little bit different every time you run your program. You can learn about the block by hovering over it in the toolbox and choosing See Examples. Okay, now I don't know exactly how this is going to work on your iPad, but on a computer I can hover over it with my mouse and click the examples and bring up this screen to show you all the different things it can do. And when you pull this up, it shows you everything, all right? Every one of the pieces of code that you can use is here, okay? All right? So, let's take a look at, let's see, do this. Run the program several times to see how it works. Change the numbers inside random number and run the code again a few times to see what changes. Okay, so we got a background that's going to be kind of reddish. We're going to make an orange circle that has random number instead of an x coordinate. The y coordinate is going to be 200 and the size is going to be 50-50. Okay, so I'm guessing, here's our kind of right in the middle, we're going to have a circle that is going to randomly appear kind of along this line. So let's check it out. So there it is the first time. Okay, there it is the second time. All right, so every time we run it, it shows up in a different spot. Okay? Now let's change these numbers, okay? It's 0, 400. I'm gonna make a wild guess and assume that the random number, min, max. Okay, so this is gonna make a random number between 0 and 400. So if I made it, for example, between 200 and 250, then my circle is only gonna vary between this small of an area. Now let's see if that works. Yep. It's not moving quite as much because I've restricted the random numbers to only between 200 and 250. Okay, cool. Random number is a really useful thing when we're making games. We can make a random location of different things that your character might have to avoid, stuff like that. Different random locations of, like, you know, a tree that might show up on screen or whatever. So here's some same fun from last time. Right now, only the x coordinate is random, but you can make the y coordinate random too. Use a random number for the ellipse's y parameter, so the circle is drawn at a random y position too. As long as your circle is appearing at random x and y positions, you can move on. Okay, so what we're saying is, let's get rid of this 200, and for our, we're going to drag a random number in there instead. And if this is becoming kind of an issue, I know on the iPads dragging blocks around can be a pain in the butt, you can change this to show text, okay? And instead of dragging in lines of code, you can type in, so this was 200 before, all right? You can drag or put your cursor, use the arrow keys to move it around, and we can delete that and type in random number, use the arrow, click enter, it'll be autofill, and we'll go from 0 to 400. Okay, that can help a little bit if you're trying to do this on the iPad. Now you'll see that not only is it appearing on a random X position, but also random Y positions as well, as in it's showing up all over the screen. So we're good, we can move on. Okay, variables can be assigned a random number too. This lets you save a single random value so that you can use it as many times as you want in your program. Okay, so now we're bringing variables back in it. That's something that we learned in lesson 5. Assign a random number to the variable I size so that the eyes automatically change size every time you run the program. Remember, the left and right eyes should always match each other. Okay, so what we're thinking, and I'll go back to blocks here, we have made a variable called I size, and we have set it equal to 27. So now we got kind of this digital bucket, and inside of that bucket is the number 27. And anytime we want to use that number, we have to say, look in the bucket for that number. So we've got our eyes drawn. We're going to make 2 black ellipses, and they are going to use the eye size variable for their size. So when we draw this the first time, they should be pretty small. Okay, cool. And every time we draw it, they're going to be the same because we are not changing the eye size every time we run it. It's always 27. So now let's change that to a random number. And we were at 27. So if we go between 1 and 10, we're going to have kind of small eyes, right? So let's change it between maybe 10 and 100. So that'll give us a big variation in those eye sizes. Let's check it out. Whoa, whoa, wow. See that? So now remember what we're doing is we've created a variable called eye size, and every time the program runs, it assigns a different random number to be held inside that variable container, okay, between 10 and 100. Then when the rest of the program runs, it says check back in that variable and grab that number out of there and use that for the width and the height of these ellipses. Okay, so cool. That looks great. Let's finish and move on. All right. Now we got these 2 flowers use a single variable to store their petal size, but the value stored in the variable changes in the middle of the program. Do this. Run the program several times to see how it works. Discuss the code with your partner. Change the program so the flowers had a random petal size as in the image. Okay, so let's see this. So we've got, okay, we've got petals that are random sizes every time we run it. Okay, so I'm gonna minimize this. I should do that so we can see what's going on here. So we've got a variable petal size, okay, and it is declared at the top. That's what we call when you declare a variable, we name it. Then we're going to change, or we're going to put a value of 30 in and then draw one of the flowers, then change it to 60 and draw another flower. Okay, let's run that. And every time they're the same size, okay? So this one that is drawing the petals of size 30, and then this one which is drawing petals of size 60. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to have the random number function change the size in the middle of the program, and we're going to do it twice. Okay, so it is going to generate a random number. That value, whatever it is going to be stored in the petal size variable. Then we're going to use that petal size variable to determine the size of the petals. Then we're going to do it again. We're going to get a different random number stored in that petal size variable. So we're using the same variable, just going to reuse it. And we're going to create a random number, put it in there, and use it again for this program, for this flower. So let's try to give it some numbers that make sense. Let's go between like 10 and 100 for both of them. And remember, since it's running the random number every time, we should end up with petals of different sizes every time. So let's look. Yep. We're getting different sizes for both flowers. That's great. Now, this is one way you could do it. You could also do it one other way where you make 2 variables. You could make petal size 1 and petal size 2. Assign them a random number right at the beginning here, and then use petal size 1 for the first flower and petal size 2 for the second flower. But this technically uses less memory space because we're only using 1 variable instead of 2, which is a little technical, but it is kind of important to know, especially if you're really interested in coding in the future. Okay, practice with random numbers. So we'll do both of these activities. Here's A. You've learned how to randomize things, so it's time to put all that knowledge to use in this scene. Cool. Make the scene more fun. Give the plants or the planets random sizes so it's always changing. And for added fun, randomize their positions a little bit. Okay. All right, so all right, we got our planets here. I'm gonna put some notes in. Where the heck is my notes? Oh, there we go, comments. So here are my planets. Okay, So I've got a yellow, a salmon, a cyan, a lavender, a crimson, and an orchid colored planet. Looks like they're probably in order. Yep. Give the planets random sizes. For added fun, randomize their positions a little bit. Okay. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. You know, we could use the random number a bunch of times. So, I mean, this is kind of a pain in the butt, I'm not going to lie. But I'll just do a couple of them for you. Notice how I'm using the arrow to give myself all 4 parameters for each one of these. And then I'm going to drag in my random number for the width and the height. Which is kind of annoying. Let's just do one of them. This is kind of annoying. What I'm doing is I'm trying to just get through this quickly without spending a ton of effort onto it. So now you can see that my little planet over here is pretty small, so we'll go in between 100 and maybe 200. And now that first planet should change in size slightly. Yeah, there it goes. It's changing in size. Cool. We could also do a random number for the position. To be honest with you, this is a lot of work, so I'm not going to change the position. But if you wanted to, you could just put a random number. I would probably change like maybe the Y coordinate only, so they kind of move up and down, but they don't change position on the screen. But that's up to you. Okay, debug random shape position. Right now, in this program, each rectangle has its own random position. Can you make it so that the rectangles are always stacked on top of each other, but the entire stack is randomly positioned? Okay, use the variable x position to draw the bottom 2 rectangles at the same x position as the top pink rectangle. Oh, all right. So we've got these rectangles that are moving all over the place. All right, and we want them to move as a stack. Okay, so we've got x position is a random number, and all we want to do is use that x position variable for all of those x locations. That way we generate this random number once, and then it is used for the x position of all of those rectangles, so that no matter when you restart the program, they are going to line up with each other on the sort of horizontal axis. So let's see. Yep, not moving much, but it is moving around. That's great. I think that's it. See, this was way easier than the last one. I don't know why. Okay, so let's move on to the assessment. And I'm just going to give you the instructions. I'm not going to do it for you. But this program draws a rainbow snake. To make the snake draw differently every time, you'll need to use the random numbers. Do this. Run the program several times to see how the starter code works. Add at least 3 new different colored circles to your rainbow snake. Use random number to make the rest of the snake's body move up and down like the first 3. All right. Challenge. Can you make the size of some random circles too? Yes, of course we can. So here's our snake, and you notice that if I refresh a bunch of times, it looks like it's moving around a little bit. That's neat. Okay, so what you want to do is make some more circles, and my advice would be look at the intervals between. It looks like these are 40 apart on the x-axis. See that? 100, 140, 180. The next one would be 220. Make a different color. Again, we're using the red, orange, yellow, so you might have blue be the next one. In fact, that's what they're showing, or green, I should say. Blue, indigo. So follow that pattern. You notice that the random number is the same, so you just got to make a couple new ellipses. All right, so good luck with that. Do your best. I'll kind of take a look at these challenges here. Now, there's a bunch of them. We got a whole bunch of these. The last one is free play. I would just work on doing, one or two. Well, I do all of them, but you can use the random number to do random color codes using the RGB code. If you don't know what that is, take a look at this lesson. But yeah, work on these and you'll gain some skills that could be really useful later on.